Okay, so um, so far I've told you about some of my passions. Um, I I value good teaching. I don't think I've ever been as good a teacher as I wish I had been. I had kind of a tough assignment until I came to AUW. And I think the students at Lyon would understand this, that when I stand up in front of a large class, which actually Cindy and Elisa, I don't think you've ever seen me doing that. Lucky you. I just look out there and I know two-thirds of the students really do not agree with me. And they were raised to be hostile. So it's hard. It's hard to feel comfortable. But still, teaching is valuable, trying to help students let go and rethink things, and plus myself, always trying to learn from them. But so teaching, good teaching, because of the teacher that I had, and trying to understand things, that's been a passion that I've had. And trying to appreciate great minds. And then my teacher that meant so much to me. And justice, the direction my country, I've watched it go for 50 years, is really grieving me. And I care about the environment. So those are, all the deities there. I also really, the Aphrodite, I like style, I like taste. But I don't spend money on it. I just appreciate it, especially when I go abroad. Textiles, I used to sew. And in Indonesia, batik was a big thing. And then in Bangladesh, textiles are a big thing. Corporations have sort of gotten a hold of them, and there's a lot of pretty sketchy labor issues for the women who work in those factories. But the textiles themselves and the tradition behind them of people, even poor people live for the sake of something greater than just eating and sleeping and putting clothes on. Like they have a desire to have it be stylish, beautiful, design, color, and then they link that to in Indonesia, they link a certain design and certain colors to a certain area of the country. And so it gets to be sort of a source of regional pride. And all of that is really, I like. But this one is my children. Okay, so I have three children, and I was really passionate about them growing up. I was amazed at how passionate I was about them. And one time I saw a National Geographic video, and it was of this mother bear, and she was in front of a cave, and her cubs were in the cave, right? And she's walking around like this. And I go, oh boy, I get that. I get that, mother bear. There's a thing called mother bear love, actually. But, it's kind of like, you touch my cubs, you're toast. I'm going to get you. So yeah, it was terrible if anybody sort of psychologically wounded my child, if a teacher said something that wasn't right. Oh, I got, oh. Anyway, I was a mom, but I also wanted my kids to find out who they were, find their own path in life. I wasn't a controlling mom, but I was a mom that sort of stood back and checked out, made sure they had a good environment, sort of kept tabs on how they were developing with their friendships and school and sports and whatever else they were doing, dance or whatever. So, so they've all gone into really interesting careers. But in our country, if you want to have an interesting career, you really have to plan ahead quite a bit. And so their grandparents helped pay for their college, and then they had to pay for grad school, and it's really a lot of money. So they just pay low interest loans for 20 years or something. But the system in the US is designed to make people greedy, want money, because education costs a lot. And so, of course, then you would be motivated by money. But in the end, I do hope you find something that you can get paid for, but that really is meaningful to you. Or you can do whatever job you do in a very meaningful way where you help people out. So, you know, either one. My oldest daughter works for the Rainforest Alliance, and she worked at the Department of Labor and International Relations for 15 years. She works on slave labor issues, which is why I'm aware of women in textile industry, right? That's one that her department at the Department of Labor was, you know, red flagged in a lot of countries, the textile factories. And now she works for the Rainforest Alliance, which is sustainability, but she works on the labor issues. So it's not just that they make sustainable things, they make them in a sustainable way. They they treat their workers decently. It's trying the big picture. So that's what she does. And she has a couple kids and all that. And then my son is a inner city charter school. He founded and co-directs for kids from kindergarten to 8 years old. And there's a lot of Somalian and Ethiopian refugees or second generation refugees. There's a woman in the US House of Representatives, Ilham Omar. I don't, she's too uppity for me. I mean, I don't like her as a politician very well, but she did get elected in the Twin Cities because there are a lot of Cambodian and Somalian refugees. Carl's particular school has Ethiopian. Anyway, the students take Spanish, English, and Arabic. They're required to. And they have Latinx students, some white students, some African American students, but it's a multicultural school and it's nice. It's just that it's a very hard job. Nobody has any idea how difficult it is, especially right now, right, with COVID. So he is having a meeting as I speak with the board of directors, and he's had to figure out, you know, are they going to be teaching online? Are they going to be teaching in-house? And so they had to make that switch to online. I just read, he sent me the text of he sent to everybody about what they're doing, what their plan is moving forward. So right now, they're going to mostly stay online, but they're going to, some of the more high need students are going to come in. They've been allowed to vaccinate only 3 people on their staff, but that'll, you know, gradually, the more that are vaccinated, the more of the higher needs kids. But basically, the really good news is that online, the students are 67% are moving forward, or they're moving forward at a 67% rate, and it's only 50% of the way through the year. So they're actually ahead of where the benchmarks are. And that's one of the issues with my son, is that he works like a dog, but he gets evaluated on, you know, these numbers, just number crunching about how the students score in reading and math. But all right, you know, you just have to do what you got to do. But 2 years ago, he was diagnosed with a cancerous tumor on his pancreas. And the only people I knew that had pancreatic cancer died, like Steve Jobs. So everybody for a week or so thought my son was going to die, the slow and painful death. And that was just it, you know. he would be in a bed in the living room and his two little kids would be running around, and it was just, anyway, so it turns out it was neuroendocrine cancer and it hadn't spread. And so he had major surgery to cut out the tumor, and then to have to restructure his pancreas and his stomach and his intestine, certain area there. But he's cancer free now. But then as soon as he starts to recover his health, then COVID happens, just a year later. And oh my, but anyway, and then my youngest one is a journalist, and she was an economics major, and she writes a weekly post. It's called Make Me Smart. It's Marketplace, which is a public radio coverage of business. So it's the only coverage of business that does not have to adapt itself to a corporate sponsor. So they really are able to freely say, things about the corporate world that other papers can't, because they'll lose their sponsorship. They depend upon rich corporations for advertising. So actually her Marketplace, the reason people donate to Marketplace is precisely because they say the things that other places don't say. So you can Google Make Me Smart, Erica Phillips, and you'll get it. I get it every Friday, but it's actually really good. I mean, I'm her mother, so, but she gives numbers that are really important numbers. It's sort of like you didn't know you needed to know this. And so she tells you things that aren't, front and center in the news. And so by the end of reading her post, I don't know, it has about 10 points. By the end of it, you feel like you're more informed about some important things, but you're not emotionally bent out of shape. Like, oh, when I go, I'm conscientious. I find out what Trump's doing every day. And oh my gosh, it's really hard not to get emotional, or other things in the news. But this one, it's a number, and then she explains the number. And you can tell why it's important to know that number. And it's nice. So she started out in arts journalism because she likes the arts. And she got a job with the Wall Street Journal. But then they promoted her to covering economics because she was an economics major. But anyway, she's got a really, really good job too. And my kids are 39, 42, and 46. And so they are literally in leadership positions in midlife during this huge collapse, restructuring. So that's another reason why I'm in a phased retirement. Like, I can't let myself have too much to do because my kids really need to know their mom is not preoccupied and not vulnerable. And so this semester, I'm only teaching one class because AUW is not hiring at the moment because of all the things going on. But I volunteered to teach AUW students, and then I got an adjunct job. Otherwise, I didn't have a job, but this is great, And I hope to go back to AUW when they hire again, but it's okay. Life will go on. But I did want to read something my son sent me, because this is this issue about being religious versus humanistic. And he's married to a woman from Mexico because he went down to Mexico to teach for 3 years. And she's wonderful. She's phenomenal. She's a teacher for inner city kids at a charter school. Everybody loves her and she loves them. She's also an excellent teacher, right? She just gets them from point A to point B. She has all these skills that I don't have. She doesn't tell, she teaches Spanish. She doesn't say, well, what's your thought about this? I mean, this is this in Spanish, you can't just have an opinion about whether a certain vaso means cup or not. So, but, but he sent me this thing about humanistic teaching. And then after that, I did want to say Kahil Gibran also has a little essay about children, which I think is also true for students. So when Gibran says your children are not your children, it's also true that your students are not your students. They don't belong to you. They're not extensions of your ego or something. But first, I'll read what my son said about humanistic teachers. And then you can figure out for yourself how to tie spiritual humanism, secular humanism with your religious beliefs. Um, Whatever, you're all working out your own worldview, basically. Humanistic teachers need to develop an entirely different rhythm, sometimes in the cracks and crevices of the classrooms we are given. We begin with a many-eyed approach, an eye on your student and an eye on yourself, an eye on the environment for learning, and an eye on the context within which your work is embedded. You need an eye on reality and another on possibility. You might end each day by asking, what didn't I do well today? Could I have done better with this student or that one? What alternatives exist? And you might start the next day forgiving yourself for your lapses and shortcomings, ready to start again. Without self-criticism, teachers can become too easily satisfied and then self-righteous. But without acceptance, they are vulnerable to self-loathing, to berating themselves unnecessarily. Criticism and forgiveness. This is the path to wisdom in teaching. We are, each one of us, a work in progress. We are pilgrims who see our students as unruly sparks of meaning-making energy on a voyage through their lives. We too are on a journey. Let's create a teaching life worthy of our teaching values. So it is kind of amazing that I had not talked to him about any of my philosophy or anything, but he sent me that years ago. Um, yeah, sometimes, I don't know, a couple months ago now, 6 months ago, well, I don't know, might have been a year ago. I don't see him very much anymore. I said, well, how's it going? And he said, well, it's going because it's hard. It's a hard job. But that's true of all of you. Like at a certain point in my life, when I first came to Lyon, I did not want to do philosophy. I wanted to go home and be with my daughter. I wanted to finish raising her. And I hated philosophy and I was mad that it had possessed me. But that's a lot of times in midlife, you have to reconsider things. But at your age, you have to just envision things and come up with a vision. And then you will have made the most of your life if you set the bar pretty high. You're on the 50-year plan. Um, but anyway, so here's the last one about your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. And though they are with you, yet they belong not to you, right? They're not, you don't possess your children. They're not your property. Same with your students, right? You may give them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. You may house their bodies, but not their souls, for their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even in your dreams. And I've always thought this, but especially now, it's clear that the world that you take over in 20 years, I don't know what that world is going to be like. I don't know what it's going to be like in climate issues, political issues, but also technology, right? There'll be some more high-tech stuff that I have no idea about. Um, you may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you. So obviously, I would like to strive to be a teacher like my son. For life goes not backwards, nor tarries with yesterday. You are the bows from which your children, as living arrows, are sent forth. Even as the deity or the universe loves the arrow that flies, so it loves also the bow that is stable. So that's how I feel about my students too. I want to give you, be the bow, and you can shoot out into the world and aim high, okay? You're on the 50-year plan. I had no idea the things that I started to be able to do after age 50. Oh my gosh. I call it a reverse bucket list. I didn't have all these things I wanted to do that I put in this bucket. And then when I get older, no, it was like somebody asked me, you want to teach in Indonesia? It's like, where's that? Sure. I put that one in the bucket. Do you want to go to Russia? Well, sure. What the hell? Do you want to go to China? Sure. That was back in the day when Russia was opening up. At least they said they were. And when China was opening up. But I don't have any desire to go to either Russia or China at the moment. But because there is this authoritarian move. I was in Hungary, and now Hungary is a pretty authoritarian place, and I was in Turkey, and that's changed. So we'll see, if I think the pendulum can swing another way. We'll see how that works. But I wish you the best, and I will move on to my next recording.